Hello and welcome to Guild Wars Players News, the podcast where we take a look at Guild Wars game series news and talk about content on our site, Guild Wars Players. I'm Sithrith, and today we have Draculetta.
Hey, everybody.
And we have Athelros.
Hello.
Hello, indeed. So we have a ton of news this week because Guild Wars 2 was at Gamescom over the weekend, and so they just went crazy, releasing tons of information. But first, we're going to start with the beta weekend because that also happened this past weekend. It was quite a thing. There, we got access to the Revenant, we got access to the Tempest, the Dragon Hunter, the Chronomancer, and the Reaper, and of course, a favorite of mine, Stronghold. So we got to play around with that a bit, and it was pretty good for the most part. Drac, I know you were able to finally reinstall Guild Wars 2 and get it working. Did you manage to play during the weekend at all?
Hey, let me take myself off mute and maybe I can answer you.
That's a good idea.
No, I did not because it still was not working for me, and then I actually found some time to reinstall the game and it works now, but I'll talk about that later.
All right.
So no,
Sounds
I didn't
good.
get to play at all, unfortunately.
That's too bad. But I know Athelros and I played a lot of Stronghold. Like, a lot of Stronghold.
Get that Stronghold. It's the best game mode there is.
It really is. I really
So-
love Stronghold. It was really funny because afterwards I got a email from ArenaNet asking for, like, they had like a survey to fill out if you participated, and there was a question like, what did you think was fun about Stronghold? Answer, literally everything. It's just so good. I love Stronghold so much. But yeah, I played all of the elite specializations. I played the Tempest probably the least. I only did the intro story to the new map. I have two Elementalists, one's level 80, but I don't know. I just didn't feel like the Tempest... I know a lot of people... I know it is quite different from base Elementalist, but it just didn't feel that different. It just felt like a normal extension of the class, really. Like, it was just super... Lots of damage, very squishy. I don't know. It just didn't seem that different. So I didn't play it too much. I spent a lot of time on Chronomancer because that was super fun. I didn't expect it to be quite as fun. I was kind of skeptical about how good the shield would be, but I really enjoyed it. And some of the kind of little systems that you get as a Chronomancer, like Continuum Split, which is the new F5 skill. Basically, you hit it, and then for the next couple of seconds, depending on how many illusions you have out, you can just go through and do whatever, pop whatever skills you want, take as much damage as you want, and then once that time span is up, you basically just blink back to where you were before, all your health's back. Super great in PvP. Some of the wells were not great, but whatever. Dragon Hunter was also really good. Ranged support is interesting, and I liked the traps a lot more than I expected. I don't like that some of the skills, when you use the longbow, root you in place, but that's kind of whatever, I guess. Generally, it was really cool. I ended up using like a real full-on power build, and it was pretty fun. The Revenant, I can definitely say that the updates that they made to the Revenant were way better. I actually survived in PvP. I didn't just go squish immediately. So that was super cool. And I really liked using Staff combined with the Shiro Legend, actually, which I was surprised about, because I get some really nice, powerful, and, DPS-y utility skills from Shiro, and then the Staff also drops these little, like, healing orbs that you can pick up, so it gives you a bit more sustainability. And, of course, I also played Reaper. And being that I love Necromancers so much, I was really excited about Reaper. And then I was really, really disappointed in Reaper. Because in PvP, it was terrible.
Really?
It was so slow. Like, the point of the Reaper, like they said, was that it's supposed to be the slow horror movie kind of thing, but you'd get chills so you could slow your enemies so that you could actually attack them and stuff. But the greatsword abilities were so slow that people were able to just sidestep away from me while I was attacking them, even if I used chills. It was so frustrating. And if they weren't just sidestepping away, my animations are so clear and obvious that, and like the channeling time is so long that people would get a chance to just interrupt me all the time. So I was basically totally ineffectual in PvP, unless I was in a big group of people from my team. Like, the only time I actually was able to stay alive and kill people and be useful was when Athelros was on his Guardian giving me, like, a million boons. So it was really disappointing. So disappointing. I'm sure in PvE it's not as bad because, enemies in PvP aren't sidestepping away from you like they are in PvP. But gosh, it was so frustrating and so disappointing. But I actually looked at the subreddit for Guild Wars 2, and I looked at the Reaper feedback thread there, and I actually agreed with them. They had all the same complaints I did, even about specific skills that I also complained about. So hopefully they take that feedback to heart like they did with the Revenant, because they did a really good job updating the Revenant from last time, based on people's feedback. So I'm hoping they do the same with the Reaper. And what did you think about playing with all that stuff, Lataros? You didn't get to play the elite specs, but you did play with them.
And against them, I suppose.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, I can't say I really noticed too much because I was kind of focusing on spamming every ability I had. I'll kind of go into that later. But the Revenant was just, like you said, the only time you were able to get on people and actually use your abilities is when you had Aegis, so they can block you. You can, they wouldn't just hit you with a stun or something. You had quickness, your abilities would actually go off about as fast as my normal abilities do.
I think you mean Reaper. You said Revenant.
Yeah, my bad.
Okay, just checking.
Yeah, that one. And obviously swiftness and stuff like that too. It's just, and even when you were able to get on people, the damage seemed less than impressive for how hard it was to actually get there.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't usually pay too much. Obviously I look at numbers to see how much damage I'm doing, but I'm not generally the kind of person who analyzes how much damage I'm doing compared to others and compared to other skills I have or whatever. But one thing that really stuck out while I was looking at the subreddit feedback thread about Reapers was somebody pointed out that the Reaper Greatsword auto attack is 30% slower than any other Greatsword auto attack for any other profession, but it does the same amount of damage. So it's not even like you're going to be doing more damage as a Reaper even though you're slow. That was kind of the point of the class, was it was going to be really slow, but when you do land hits, it's going to be really devastating.
Well, yeah,
that
doesn't
the case.
Make sense at all then. Why?
No.
I wonder if that was just an oversight on their part, or if they changed
possibly they're just
undershooting
to avoid making an OP class.
Right, like with the Revenant, they started the Revenant off super squishy, hardly any damage, and then from there they upped the damage. So I'm hoping that's what they're doing with Reaper.
Yeah, I think generally it's actually better to do that than make an OP class and then nerf it.
Right.
Kind of too much experience of that way around for it to be enjoyable.
Mm-hmm. It's always nice to be buffed. It's never fun to be nerfed.
Even if it's right.
Even if it's reasonable. Yeah, exactly. People get used to being OP and then they enjoy it too much, and it's not a good method.
Yeah. The what was it called? The Dragon Hunter? I think it was that actually we had a fair amount of success on.
Yeah, that was really nice.
Actually, what was the class you were playing? Was it Dragon Hunter when we duoed the entire enemy camp?
Actually, I think I was on my Revenant for that.
Was it Revenant or Chronomancer?
I'm pretty sure it was my Revenant, because I remember being really surprised at surviving. Because I think that was the first time I played a Revenant, this beta.
Okay, yeah, because that was when we straight up just went into the enemy camp and killed both the Lord and all the NPCs without dropping. I kind of got down to once, but that didn't count.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. But I feel like, we had pretty good success with Revenant, Chronomancer, and Dragon Hunter. They were all very strong, I feel like. The nice thing about Revenant was I found that pairing Ventari and Shiro together, while at first it doesn't seem like it makes sense, they work really well together, switching back and forth between staff and dual swords. And I can switch to Ventari if I suddenly need to heal myself or my team's Lord or teammates or whatever. But then if we get to the other Lord, I can switch to Shiro and just do tons of damage.
I assume just having the double swords is enough damage on its own.
Mm-hmm.
What damage you have built into that set, it's enough.
Yeah, it pretty much is.
Yeah, it seemed pretty good. Obviously, Stronghold is about the same. So
yeah, I don't think there were any changes to Stronghold. I think it was pretty much the same. So it was still good.
Yeah, still would like to see maybe something done with the units, because I think, you mentioned before, the archers are just kind of bad.
Yeah, the archers aren't
They're
great.
pretty much just used when you want to completely overwhelm.
Mm-hmm.
When you're pretty much going to win anyway. That's what it comes down to. When if you haven't broken down the gates, then all you need are gate breakers because they're the only ones who can do it, aside from heroes. So yeah, I think making the archers actually good. Maybe adding some more unit types or something at some point. I don't know what they could add.
Maybe some kind of NPC that would slow player characters. That might be interesting.
Maybe anti-projectile, like some sort of siege type.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, some of these might encroach on what the heroes do, I suppose, but
yeah,
some sort of more variety, because having just the gatebreakers which you need up until a certain point and then they're irrelevant, to archers which are you don't want them at all until you've broken all the gates, and then after that they're just sort of there.
Right. I feel like the only other time it's good to have archers is it's just basically as an overwhelming presence. Like if you get everybody on your team to send out archers all at the same time, it can be overwhelming for the other team to try and kill them, and they can kind of overwhelm some of the enemy NPCs as well. So yeah, archers are not great as they are. One other thing I did do, I didn't go into the Verdant Brink new Heart of Thorns map much, because I do want to keep some things like shiny and new for when I go into the actual expansion for real. So I didn't really look around too much. I did do the intro story a little bit, because I heard some interesting things about Sylvari. I feel like at this point, spoilers or whatever, but I mean, everybody knows that Sylvari are Mordremoth minions, etc. So this shouldn't be too surprising. Basically, when you play the intro as a Sylvari character, you can hear Mordremoth talking to the other Mordrim minions, which is pretty cool. He doesn't talk directly to you, but the Mordrim minions will be like, "Oh, I need help, maker or master or whatever they call him," and he's like, "I hear you, my minions," and then this big plant thing comes out of the ground and sprays poison all over you. So that's pretty cool. Also slightly disappointing because I had heard about this happening before I logged in. I was like, "Oh, cool!" And I was expecting it to be kind of like Harry Potter, Voldemort kind of hearing things in your head. Like my Sylvari character would be like, "Oh, what's that noise in my head?" Oh, and being in pain for hearing Mordremoth or whatever. But it was just my character didn't react at all, which is weird considering that one of the plus sides to this new intro is that your character, it's not like the personal story where there's cutscenes, and it's not like the previous Living Story where you just talk in these little chat boxes, basically, and you, pick your options or whatever. This is your character actually saying things, using he talks, and, you can hear his voice, and, a little speech bubble pops up over his head. So I kind of expected my character to react to hearing that voice, but didn't, which is disappointing. But,
might come into the story later on, I suppose.
Yeah,
I guess on the other hand, it might just get irritating if you're gonna constantly be your character is constantly reacting to it, depending on how common it often it is that you hear it.
Right. Yeah, and the other thing I noticed was I'd seen screenshots and videos and stuff of the map before and of this story instance, and I was kind of just it looks all right. But once you actually get in and actually are there, it's really amazing looking. It's even just in the story instance part. The map is huge. There's huge vines and stuff towering over you, and the packed ship's all on fire, and it looks really amazing. And then you can go down this ravine, and there's all these ruins, and everything is really detailed but huge at the same time. So it's really cool. I'm definitely looking forward to actually getting in there and playing stuff. Mel did go into the map itself and play, and he made a post on our site about smoke scales, which I guess are one of the enemies that you fight in the map area. Apparently, a lot of the enemies are very difficult in Verdant Brink map, and Mel takes issue with one in particular called Smoke Scales, saying that most of the time they're untouchable, but they do a lot of damage to people. That sounds like something that we would take issue with. Like I said, I didn't really experience it because I didn't go in, but that sounds similar to that dragon fight.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like a mechanic I would despise.
Yeah. So Mel suggests that they tone that down a bit.
Hopefully, yeah. If it is as bad as it seems, then other people have likely raised similar concerns. Hopefully.
Yeah. So that's about it for the beta weekend. I think we covered pretty much everything. So we'll just move on. This past weekend, they also did points of interest, and they talked about the Pact Commander Mastery Line. Last week, we talked about some of the Mastery Lines they talked about last week, and one of them was the Pact Commander Mastery Line, and we said for the most part we really liked it because it's about mentoring new players, helping them out, but one thing we took issue with was the end thing, which was giving you auto loot and stuff. So in this point of interest, they kind of cover this Pact Commander Mastery Line in more detail. The first tier is called Pact Mentor, and you get a icon over your character's head, kind of like a commander tag, like you can see it on the map and everything, but it's obviously distinct from a commander tag, and you get +5 run speed percent boost for you and your group whenever you're in capital cities in Tyria. You can toggle the icon on and off, and yeah. Then the next tier gives you some bonus crafting XP, and they hinted at it being quote-unquote very nice for precursor crafting, so that's something to think about, I guess. The next tier gives a special, gives you access to these special pact merchants that kind of move around Tyria, and they sell recipes that might not be available anymore for whatever reason, like they're part of Living Story Season 1, or they're from some holiday thing, I guess. And one of the recipes, there's also going to be new recipes besides these old ones. One of them is going to be a Melandru themed back item, so we have like a Grenth item and a Dwayna, and I think there's some other ones too. So that kind of goes on with that. Next tier decreases your revive time for allies based on how much lower level they are from you. So reviving fellow level 80 characters, you'll be reviving them about 10% faster. So not a big deal. But if you're reviving really low level characters, it could be as much as 50% faster to revive them. So I can definitely see that being helpful for helping new players. And the final tier, Advanced Logistics, you can receive loot instantly when you kill an enemy. You don't have to press F near them. And one thing they did answer is, why is this not being given to everyone? And their reasoning is that they were worried it would make botting too easy if they were to just make it a basic quality of life function of the game. So instead, they are making it a reward to those who actually play the game and participate in content. Itharos, you can rant now.
All right. So, in the Points of Interest, episode 28, as is linked in the article, I think I might be paraphrasing slightly, but they said that they wanted to reward people who were playing the game without rewarding people who are using bots or whatever.
Right. There's the
So, I thought this was, as mentioned last week, I thought this is a pretty stupid thing to do, just because it's a quality of life change. So you want that as many players as possible, preferably from the beginning, where they're going to be needed to be convinced to keep playing the most. And,
makes sense.
Yeah. You kind of pointed something out to me when we were discussing this before, and it's kind of relevant to compare this to Lotro. We do this often because it was the other major game we played, but this one is actually quite relevant. In that game, there is currently complete auto loot, actual auto loot, in that you kill a mob, it automatically goes into your bags. There's even a pen and loot bag if you're full in your actual bags. So before that, they obviously announced they were going to be trying this. And when they did it, not a single person, not a dev who came up with the idea, or a player brought an issue of it would make it easier for bots or gold sellers or whatever.
And it's even more of an issue for that game because that game is fully free to play. So they probably have more of an issue with that.
Exactly.
Whereas Guild Wars 2 is buy to play. Bots aren't really a thing
it's
as much,
harder
I
for
feel
them
like.
to get a foothold in. Yeah. That was the thing that I didn't even consider. That's like a major point, I think, with this, is if a free-to-play game can do this without having the slightest concern of bots, and it didn't do anything in terms of bringing more bots into the game. I didn't see any after. I mean, I didn't see any before either, but I didn't see any noticeable increase in bots or gold sellers afterwards.
No. And I mean, in Guild Wars 2, you get the gold sellers, but I don't think I've never actually seen bots out farming.
No, they seem to just link you to certain sites. That's pretty much all they do. Yeah, so if a free-to-play game can do that and implement it and not have any issues, I don't see a reason for a buy-to-play game to do it. or to
Right.
not do it. It's completely nonsensical to me. I do not. And then the thing with not wanting to reward
we got two sides.
bots while rewarding players, it's kind of all well and good to want to do that, but what they're really doing is kind of just punishing like the newer players, because we don't know exactly how hard it's going to be to get this yet. They're kind of punishing the new players, or like avoiding rewarding them, because they want to make sure they don't reward bots.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it just really bothers me. It really does. It's because I got real used to using auto loot in Lotro. It's just a really nice convenience.
You really just don't want to have to press F anymore, do you?
Not having to. I mean, especially in situations where you can't like fighting a group of mobs and you die partway through, but then you didn't loot,
Mm-hmm.
so you're just stuck there with your corpse with a bunch of loot around you that you know you're never going to be able to get.
Right.
It's just really annoying to me, and their reasoning just doesn't make sense. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah. Any other thoughts, Drek?
Well, I'm just like struggling. I'm trying to think any newer game that does not have auto loot.
Yeah.
And I am struggling to think of an MMO
I
that.
believe SWTOR still has the more Guild Wars style of press a button, it'll do everything around you. I believe so. That was
Does
the
it?
case the
Okay.
last time I played it. Anyway, yeah.
Because it's just like, I mean, auto loot is like just.
It's so much better.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
It's just so much better.
It's just a straight upgrade.
In the chat, also, ESO does not have loot. There is a grab all button
Yeah,
like we do
that
have
seems to
here.
be what a lot of them are most using. It's still not good enough, really. It's better than having to select each individual mob, but it's still...
It was definitely very difficult going from Lotro to Guild Wars 2 because, yeah, you get really used to just, okay, I killed things, now I don't have to wander around trying to find the glittery body to press F near or whatever.
Of course, then, you get the opposite side of it. You get people that say, well, it breaks my immersion if I just automatically pick stuff up. My immersion is
Yes,
broken.
but having miniatures of freaking, I don't know, Retlock running around after you isn't immersion breaking at all.
Right,
I
exactly.
feel like I've never heard the immersion breaking argument in regards to Guild Wars 2.
I'll be
I feel
glad
like that's
if I
not.
never do.
There's some weird arguments against certain things I've
Yeah.
heard, but immersion is never one of them.
Seems like they're sticking to other stupid arguments.
Yeah. So yeah, and one nice thing I did take away from the Pact Commander kind of stream they did. Apparently, a lot of people were asking like, well, I like helping new players and all, but I really like gold and loot more. Like, what kind of rewards do I actually get for this? Like, what do I get out of helping these new players? And they were like, that's not the point of this mastery line. The point of this mastery line, except for obviously that last tier, is to help new players. Like, you're not going to be getting rewards for turning on your mentor tag and helping new players find a point of interest or something. Like, they're basically making tools to help people who are already predisposed to helping out the community.
Yeah,
And they're just making it easier for them.
Yeah, even the rewards you get, like the move speed thing and the chat stats, are all kind of centered around even more helping you help people, because like the move speed, obviously running around in a group, the the chat status total, obviously that's people find you easier if you're waiting, looking to help people. That's kind of the whole point of it. The rewards help you help people even more. Kind of gives you more tools to use.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it is. I do really appreciate that they are making this mastery line. I think it's a good move. It'll definitely help the community be a bit friendlier and helpful, I think. So, that's mostly that's not all the news from last week, but we'll get into PvP news. There's so much news this week, guys. You don't even know. Today, well, technically yesterday, Massively OP announced, but then today, ArenaNet made their own blog post about it. They announced the Revenant Elite Specialization, which kind of threw people for a loop. They kind of expected the classes that we have now to get their Elite Specializations fully, announced before we got the Revenant, but whatever, I guess. The Revenant Elite Specialization is called the Herald, and they will be getting a offhand shield, and they will be getting Glint as a legend to invoke, which people kind of figured based on the trailer for Heart of Thorns and Ritlock's blue dragon stuff going on. So shield, like this whole trait line, shield, Glint's legend thing are basically going to be focusing on support, providing boons to you and your allies, and also giving yourself a bit more personal defense, because that's kind of one thing that the Revenant's been lacking. Like I said, this beta weekend I didn't die as much, but there's still not a whole lot of like survival going on. So this shield, this whole thing is gonna, I guess, give you that. Unless you just want to go in and kill things, which is totally, that's viable. You can do that. The shield skills, one of them is called Envoy of Exuberance, and you send the energy of glint toward the target area, granting protection to allies, and then the energy bursts and heals allies and returns to you and gives you protection on the way back. The other one is called Crystal Hibernation, which sounds kind of cool, and basically, like, you get a Defiance bar, so, like, you basically put, like, a shield around yourself and you regenerate health. You don't take any damage from attacks, and conditions cannot be applied to you. They basically build this as an oh no button for emergency personal defense situations. And then the other thing is, like, each elite specialization introduces a new mechanic to the class. Revenant already has kind of a whole lot of random weird mechanics going on with it, but this new one is the facets. And basically, in Guild Wars 1, to get to Glint, you had to fight the 6 facets first. And so each of the utility skills you can use for Glint is based on one of these facets. So there is the facet of elements, which grants... and the other thing is that these facets are kind of like... They're 2-tier skills. Basically, you turn them on, and you start sending out pulses of a certain boon. And then later on, you can hit them again, and it does a actual skill that stops the pulse or whatever, and actually does an attack. So the facet of elements grants nearby allies swiftness every few seconds, and then you press it again to trigger the elemental blast. So then magical dragon breath covers the area and applies negative conditions to foes. Facet of chaos, which is the elite skill, grants nearby allies protection every few seconds, and then when you use it again, it's chaotic release. You damage and knock back foes while granting super speed to allies. Then on top of that, there's also a facet of nature, which is actually usable regardless of whichever legendary you are invoking. So I'm assuming it's going to be like a F2 skill or something. They didn't really say. But basically it pulses naturalistic resonance every few seconds to nearby allies, which increases outgoing boon duration by 50%. So that's pretty powerful sounding. And then when you use it again to stop the channel, you use one with nature, and you unify with the other facets, granting allies the boons the facet provides. So basically, it kind of provides you every single boon that the other facets provide. So, like, what were they? Protection and super speed and all that stuff. So that sounds pretty powerful. The other thing they talked about was the underwater combat for Revenant, because I guess we haven't really heard about it, and I didn't really think about it, because I never really go underwater to fight things, and I never tried it with my Revenant, didn't think about it. But Revenants will be using spears, and they outline the spear attacks. I wrote it up on our site, you can go read that if you want. I'm not going to talk about it, because let's be honest, underwater combat, not very interesting. And doesn't happen very often. Another thing was with the Massively OP article, they did have a very long interview with Roy Kronecker, who is in charge, I guess, of the Revenant, as well as many other classes, so definitely go take a look at that. He puts out some pretty good information and thoughts on the Revenant and Glint specifically. So that should be interesting. Tomorrow they are going to be doing another live stream featuring the Revenant and the Glint Herald specialization specifically. So that should be interesting, and we'll talk about all of that next week. But go ahead.
I don't know if I'm the only one. I mean, you can obviously see the similarities to the Guardian, just in general, what Guardian does. The boons, the protection, the knockbacks with the shield, the reducing like damage coming in. Even the underwater abilities seem very similar to what I'm currently using on my Guardian, who uses a spear. I'm pretty sure that number 2 is like almost completely the same. I don't know. Aside from that one ability, the Crystal Hibernation, I don't really see anything that's kind of unique.
Well, the facets, because you can't keep up those pulses infinitely. They require upkeep because Revenants have that energy bar, so you're not going to be able to just like activate all of them and just leave them go. you'll have.
I mean, I suppose from the point of view of the Revenant themselves, but maybe like someone who's playing with one, like alongside one. I don't think it'd be easy to just kind of tell the difference if you're just looking like the boons you're getting and stuff. They just seem really similar to me. I don't know.
I guess we'll find out when we get our hands on gameplay. Because, I mean, when we heard about Dragon Hunter, that sounded really not great. But then once we were able to play with it, it was way better than expected. So this could be very different in practice.
Do you see yourself perhaps using this in PvP in some way?
Maybe. I could see maybe changing out Ventari for Glint, depending on, like I said, depending on gameplay. Because if I'm able to provide boons and healing rather than just healing, that could be. I also saw somebody, I think it was on Tumblr, saying that they were excited about this and excited about trying using Glint and Ventari together to do an actual healing build on a character, like a full healing build for once. That could definitely be very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Interesting to see.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm sure the skills look really cool. All the Revenant skills thus far have looked really cool. So, if nothing else, it'll be pretty.
I'm sure.
So, that's still not the end of the news. We're 30 minutes in, and there's still 3 more items on our news list. So much news, you guys, just drowning in news. So next up, what they announced this weekend during Gamescom, and specifically during the World Tournament Series, which we'll get to in a bit, they announced something new for PvP, which, obviously I got super excited about. Basically, they are going to be introducing PvP leagues in Heart of Thorns. How this is going to work is there will be regular league seasons. Right now, every so often we get these things called ladder seasons, where playing in ranked arenas kind of lets you, like when you win, you kind of move up. But, if you lose, you fall back down in your rankings. But this is going to be different. This is going to be a league system. There will be 6 divisions. The lowest will be Amber, highest will be Legendary. And within these divisions, there will be these little pips that you can earn. The first 2 kind of set of pips in a division, or tiers, I suppose, where the first 2 tiers of pips, basically just doing anything in PvP gives you pips. Like, just participation, you're good. Next set, you have to start winning. Like, if you're losing, you won't lose pips, but you won't gain pips either. So you have to win to gain pips. And then it's in the later divisions where you have to be winning in order to not lose pips. You'll never fall to a lower division if you start losing. However, in order to keep going, you will have to win. So it could be really interesting. And basically these seasons will reset every so often. So it's not like, say season 1 ends and you were in the Legendary division, so you're really awesome. Then the next season starts. You're not going to start at Legendary. You're going to have to work your way up from the top. So this is going to kind of reward people for keeping playing. And so you won't see somebody be like, oh, I'm a Legendary division, even though they haven't played for months and months or something. And of course, ranking up in these divisions gives rewards. They're going to be giving these things called League tokens, which you can use to purchase items, such as items to create a PvP-only Legendary backpack. So that's pretty cool. Unsurprisingly, it looks like wings. All the backpacks in this game look like wings, basically. But yeah, so I'm really excited about this because I feel like this will definitely encourage people to try out PvP some more. And I'm always for that because I love me some PvP. So, like I said, that was announced during World Tournament Series in Gamescom this weekend. This was the most intense fighting I have ever seen in any game. In the chat, somebody's saying PV bleh, whatever. I love PvP. Deal with it. World Tournament Series was so intense. It wasn't even the final matchup that was super intense, but I think it was the second one between Orange Logo and the Abjurd. Orange Logo is pretty much the top team in the EU servers, and Abjurd is the top North American team. And basically, the previous World Tournament Series in Boston, Abjurd lost completely every single match they did. And so it was kind of a shock. So this time, they came back to fight Orange Logo, and I've never seen such intense fighting. I linked a highlights reel on the article I wrote, and I know we talk about having really close fights where at the last second we'll come from behind and win, but it was like that the entire couple of matches that they did against each other, where it was just constant back and forth of who is in the lead and doing really sneaky plays, and just it was so good. If you do any PvP and you like know the maps at all and you watch these, you'll understand why it was so cool. I've never seen such amazing fighting. It got me really, really pumped up for PvP, and then to have that announcement about the PvP leagues was just, yeah, I'm super excited about PvP again. So, finally, we'll come to our last bit of news. Drac. We actually had gem store sales this week.
Yes, for once. It's been a while since they have done anything with the gem store. But out of nowhere, they did release some news in the midst of all the other news they did, that they are doing a complete overhaul on all boosters that are sold in the store now.
Yep.
They did say that all existing boosters will continue to exist in the game, but they are no longer going to be sold in the gem store, or they will no longer be dropped from mobs either. And basically what's going to happen is the experience booster is going to last 2 hours, and it's going to give you plus 50% on all your experience gained in any game mode, plus 50% on your PvP reward track gain, and up to 100% bonus experience for kill streaks.
This is so much nicer than having to have XP boosts for World v World and PvE separate. It was so obnoxious. This is such a good change.
And the item booster is getting changed as well. 50% magic find, 50% chance for critical success on the crafting experience, 33% chance for an extra gathering strike, and 10-second swiftness on completing the gathering skill. And that lasts 2 hours as well. And it also will summon a Black Lion Merchant if your inventory is full when your gathering is used.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. And that one is on a 20-minute cooldown. So basically every 20 minutes you will get a Black Lion Merchant summoned if you're out gathering crafting supplies and you're full. And then finally the Heroic Booster also lasts 2 hours, and that applies to both the items in the Item Booster and the Experience Booster. So that's
pretty awesome.
That's like just an all-around, you get everything blanketed, applied to your character. So that is pretty sweet. So look for that in the gem store now. Also, they have Dwayna's weapons. And these are pretty cool looking, actually.
I was surprised.
Example picture of the staff they show is pretty sweet looking.
Yeah, I didn't expect to like these as much as I did. I ended up buying a longbow for my guardian to become a dragon hunter one day.
I actually haven't looked at the longbow. I'll have to look at it. I might do that maybe if I like the skin.
Maybe. I mean, it's gold and blue, so I feel like it doesn't match your black and red and white theme.
Yeah.
So
my shadow bow is better, I guess.
Yeah. Stick with your shadow bow. It fits you better.
Yeah. It does.
Yeah.
So that's it for the gem store for once.
Yeah. Wow. That was weird. So finally 40 minutes in and we're done with the news. Oh my gosh, you guys. So I'm really glad I didn't do a video post or a outfit post or a lore book or a Guild Wars 2 Academy this week, but we do have some stuff from Guild Wars Players news, from our site. Sounds of Tyria Drac. What is going on this week?
I went back to Guild Wars Prophecies and the track Guilds at War. This is just one of those get you pumped up type of tracks. Lots of horns, lots of drums. Pretty sweet. I do believe the problem is, since I played the original games, I'm getting confused what I hear in them and what I hear in Guild Wars 2. But if I remember correctly, I have heard this one in Guild Wars 2 as well. Which they do that a lot. I mean,
it does sound familiar, but again, I've watched so many videos at this point, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm almost positive I have heard this in Guild Wars 2, but this is another one of those tracks that it just kind of gets you all pumped up, and you can imagine getting ready for a big battle and hearing this playing, and this is playing right before the two sides charge at each other.
Cool beans. So this week we also have Kelsandra Chapter 12. It's getting harder for me to make vague descriptors about this, but yeah, go keep reading about Cassandra and Sturge's adventures. They're good as always.
And I have to say, I think this was my favorite chapter so far.
Oh, really?
Yes.
It's definitely much longer than a lot of the recent chapters, but I think that was good. I'm good. I'm glad to see a longer chapter again.
And again, I won't tell you why it's my favorite because that will spoil some stuff. So you have to go read it. But I do agree this one keeps getting better. I think every chapter. So
definitely
check it out.
Yeah. So this week, Mel also started a new posting series. This one is called A Look into Tyria South Sun Cove. And I know, Thalros, you read this article.
Yeah. I think the main thing I was curious about is there's a certain character that's being connected to this in the Living Story. I believe his name is Kanak. I don't know how you pronounce it. But yeah, you kind of interact with him a few times, but it's never really explained exactly what happened in it, because I think it's something that happened during maybe season 1, maybe like some point after that in between. I don't quite know, but it's not covered in season 2. That's all I know.
Yeah, he just kind of shows up.
Yeah, and you can tell there's some history there, but it's never fully covered. So I was kind of curious exactly what happened there. So yeah, this is actually interesting to find that out, because he did something nefarious, but you never really exactly find out. Plus, Karka, I hate them. A couple of times I felt randomly curious about covering Southern Cove, just like sort of mapping it, even though there's no reward for it, just to show it on my main map.
Mm-hmm.
They hurt.
And then Karka happened.
They hurt.
They do. They're very tough.
Mm-hmm. Like, even just one of them is very difficult to bring down.
Yeah. Yeah, this was a really, really interesting article because, if you've not done season 1, South Sun Cove is kind of like, what is this even? So I'm really glad that Mel wrote this up because, otherwise it's kind of just, this is a thing that happened. We're not going to talk about it anymore. There's just weird, giant Karka bug things everywhere. So I'm looking forward to his future articles. And then this week I also did another poll. I don't think my polls are very popular because hardly anybody votes in them. Only 7 people. No, just kidding. It's now up to 8. 8 since I started this show. But 8 people have voted. I asked what your favorite game mode is, whether it's PvE, World v World, or PvP. I am the only one who opted for PvP. Deal with it. I love PvP.
Shocked. I am shocked at that turn of events.
And I made it so people could choose multiple, but I'm still the only one who picked PvP. 7 votes went to PvE, which I guess isn't that surprising. 2 votes went to World v World, and little old me by myself, I love PvP. Whatever. You guys don't even know what you're missing. It's amazing.
Poor Citra.
Oh well. One day you'll see the glory of PvP. So speaking of PvP, Thalros, what did you do this week?
Well, I guess I'll start with the PvP bit. As we mentioned earlier in the episode, I did the beta, kind of playing around with that. I, at the same time, decided to try out my Guardian in PvP, which I hadn't done before. I was kind of curious to try out a more supporty / tank, well, mainly just supporty heal, boons, that kind of stuff. Because it's a kind of role I like to use a kind of role I like to play in League of Legends a lot. Those sort of characters that use that kind of stuff. And I was kind of just curious whether it would actually work in this game. Because, as we know, being selfish is what most people do. You go damage, you go more tanky for your own benefit. I just wanted to try it and see how it goes. Actually worked okay for the most part. I noticed... I probably could have maybe expected this. It's kind of dependent on who I'm playing with in that particular round. If, like when I was doing the one part with you, we could talk about it, where we just straight up 2v based and just, destroyed it without maybe much of a challenge. It was, really good. Because obviously I have a lot of boons to give. The staff, I believe, gave 12 might in AoE, which is just huge to give to someone who has a lot of damage anyway. It was, and I really enjoyed it. I know what I was doing because I was spamming all my abilities, but I really liked it. And on the other hand, the time I was stuck defending our base on my own against a couple of siege Skrit where I do no damage at all, so I couldn't stop them. Kind of less than enjoyable. Yeah. That's kind of less than fun when, when I'm absolutely on my own, like there's no one around, not even NPCs, I am completely useless.
Yeah, so, that is definitely a downside.
I can kind of live for a while, but I just don't really hurt anything. So yeah, it's kind of it's dependent on teammates, really.
Makes sense, I guess.
When we actually, I think a lot of times when we actually got like full-on team fights, I feel like I was able to contribute a lot, especially with the heals and whatnot. Like that one, I think it was actually that night that we were doing it. It was like they were on ours and we were on. The
really close one where we were fighting the lords at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, I think that one revive ability that knocks everyone back while I'm trying to do it right at the end. That was like really enjoyable, like that kind of real fun to do.
Well, and it's definitely, you can tell when I'm playing with you with that build, like I do way more when you have all those boons up. So it's definitely
it requires
very
coordination.
Nice.
I think is
for sure.
Down to. So I think if we're maybe playing with Sarah or something like that, doing more people, I can maybe try that. I'm actually gonna eventually try just a more damagey build, maybe, because I'm kind of enjoying what I'm doing in the PvE right now.
Right.
Which I think is Zeal. What was the other one? I asked you this earlier, and I think I've forgotten.
I think
Radiance. I think it was Radiance.
Radiance, yeah.
Yes, that's the one I'm using, which I guess I can move on to now since that's really all I did for PvP wise. I kind of leveled my Guardian Char up to 51, so I've kind of been just sort of doing different zones.
Right.
And yeah, I'm doing actually a lot of damage now. The Radiance has a lot more traits that I didn't even really realize sort of synergize with each other. So I stack up the burns a lot, and then I get the crit buff or boon from that, and then obviously do a bunch of spin to win moves and stuff. It's really, really good at the moment. I'm feeling it. And cool. I also did the level 50 personal story for the Char. They don't get Quaggins, which sucks.
No,
so I did
that
Ogres
is too bad.
instead.
No.
They were okay enough. They weren't boring, but they weren't Quaggins. That's what it comes down to. So I'm eventually going to see them in Orb, but
it's hard to live up to Quaggins, I suppose.
Yeah.
Quaggins
They're
are
also
amazing.
kind of rude. But,
don't get it. Don't get the Quaggin thing.
Quaggins are amazing, Drek.
No, they're not.
You just want that one Quaggin.
So.
Yeah, we don't get this. We don't get that. Speaking of Zojja, Drek, go on. We know you want to talk about Felicia Day, so just do it.
Pull off the Band-Aid. Do it fast. It hurts less.
Drek, come on, just do it.
No, I reinstalled the game finally and got it to work, so I don't know what broke in the patch, but I'm good to go now. So I got my Ellie, who is my little Ashura, to 59. So I'm nearing the next part of the personal story where hopefully, I can't remember what happens in 60, but I think that's when
Claw Island.
Claw Island, yeah.
Yeah.
So I won't see Zojja in my story for a while. I think pretty soon is when you split off, if I remember right. Is that not correct?
For the most part, I think so. Generally, yeah.
Yeah. So, but speaking of Felicia Day, her book is now out, which is You're Never Weird on the Internet, almost. And I did receive my copy that I pre-ordered, and I started reading that. I'm a couple chapters in, and it is amazing. So everybody has to go buy her book because it's awesome.
Yeah. I actually am planning on getting it and reading it.
Yeah, it's really good. It is. It's really, really good.
I like Felicia Day. I just don't like her in the same way that Drek likes her.
I don't think anyone does.
Yeah. My obsession knows no bounds.
Oh boy.
That's all I'm saying. So, Sithith, what did you do in game besides beta stuff?
Mostly a lot of beta stuff. I haven't actually played much since then. A little PvP here and there. I started doing some ranked matches again because, like I said, I got really pumped up from the World Tournament Series and from the League system being announced. I won most of them, actually. I was kind of surprised. I guess I shouldn't doubt my PvP skills because I love PvP. And like I said, I got the Dwayna Longbow skin for my Guardian because, the gold and the blue, it makes sense for a Guardian. And I did some silver wastes to start recouping the money I spent on that Dwayna Longbow. It wasn't cheap. So I'm not down to 0 gold, but I'm less than 100. So it's not great. But that's about it. I really didn't get much chance to play this week. And this week we don't have any donations on Patreon to talk about, but we would love your support. To help support Guild Wars players, go to the donation page, and you can support the Players Alliance Network, which is the podcast network we are a part of. And you can get rewards like getting a mention on the show or even be a guest on the show. We also don't have any new iTunes reviews right now, but if you are feeling generous and if you like the show, go to iTunes and give us a review. We'd really like it. It really helps our show, see more eyes, or I guess get into more ears, whatever. You can contact us by emailing us at podcast@guildwarsplayers.com. You can send us questions, topics you want us to talk about, ask for advice, whatever. You can also send us asks to our Tumblr, which is guildwarsplayers.tumblr.com. And, of course, we're on Twitter. Players Alliance Network is @PlayersILI. Our site is @GWPlayers. I'm at Sithrith, Drac is at Draculetta_72, and Thelros is at Thelros. And also, you can send us mail in-game. I always like hearing from listeners in-game. You can contact me at Sithrith.6741, and then Drac at Draculetta.7410, and Thelros.3164. The Players Alliance has a whole bunch of blah, blah, blah. It had to happen sometime. The Players Alliance has a whole bunch of live shows. Mondays at 8:30 p.m. Eastern is DDO Players News. Thursdays at 6:30 p.m. Eastern is this show, and Saturdays at 8:30 p.m. Eastern is Lotro Players News. You can get to all these live shows by going to guildwarsplayers.com/live. Thank you all very much for listening to our extra long show, and this is Sithrith reminding you to look before you leap.